What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome to another Bleav in Wizards draft. This is a draft-focused kind of spin-off episode here of Bleav in Wizards. We're going to be talking just, I don't know, the 2024 lottery-ish kind of stuff. We'll get into all the names to know for people. I know some of you are like, okay, hey, it's early. We shouldn't be talking draft yet, but it's pretty safe to assume the Wizards will be in the NBA draft lottery in 2024 again. So it doesn't hurt to just be overly prepared and know who to be aware of. So to do that, I've got Ersin Demir coming on here. And Ersin, I love your draft coverage, and I think you're as plugged in with these guys as anybody I know. So thank you for joining us for this one.
Hey Matt, thanks for having me on again, man. I'm looking forward to this one. Talk hoops, talk draft with you for the Wizards fans.
Yeah, it should be great. So we're going to focus mostly today on both some of the point guard. I don't know, we'll even maybe guard in general because some of these guys are combo guardy, and the bigs that could go in the lottery, the names for people to pay attention to. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of our favorites maybe later down in the draft. So let's say the Wizards took a point guard in the first round, who was a big they could take in the early second round, or vice versa. So we'll just have a whole bunch of names, and we'll spend more time with the lottery pick guys and go from there. And then if people want to hear more about this kind of stuff longer term, we can always do a follow-up episode. As always, we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside hard iced teas, hard lemonades, hard every flavor you can think of realistically. They're delicious. And the more I watch the Wizards, the more I feel like I need vodka. So it works out perfectly. Also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. You can get your latest odds and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, UFC, golf, tennis, basketball, football, everything. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting options on your favorite casino and card games. Head to the website, use our promo code Bleav, BLEAV, for 50% off your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Ersin, I've got some names here. I'm going to throw them your way. I'm going to throw in a little color on what I know about them, but I think you're more plugged in on these guys. So I don't want to spend too long on each one of the guys. We'll get you out of here in a reasonable time because it is pretty late where you are, but want to spend a little bit more time on these first couple guys at least. So
Yeah,
let's start
definitely.
with USC freshman guard Isaiah Collier. One of the first questions here, I guess, is how big do you think this guy is? I've been going back and forth about this. I've seen some places list him at 6'5", which seems crazy to me. I think he's closer to 6 feet than he is 6'5". He looks shorter than Bronny James. So 6'3" is another number I've seen pretty frequently. So I guess where are you at with him? Is he a good sized guard? I think Wizards fans specifically are kind of over the idea of more like 6-foot point guard. So I think that's why I'm asking the question first and foremost.
Yeah, man, I've seen the same thing. 6'5" seems a bit too much. I've seen 6'3", I think, on the official website. I keep it at 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I think with him it shouldn't matter that much because he's such a good advantage creator,
Yep.
especially off the dribble. An explosive athlete like him, I think, comes around not very often.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like it, of course, it's very early in the season. Of course, the strength of the schedule is not very good right now, but
Sure.
he has shown everything that he showed in high school, especially as a passer. And that's the thing what I focused on with Collier. And when I look at the Wizards roster, what type of point guard do they need? Do they need
Mm-hmm.
the floor general? I don't think they need one, to be honest. I think they can build around one without a guy like Tyus Jones, for example,
Sure.
who is that real floor general.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe use Koulibaly more as a guard
I
piece.
like that.
So if I look at Collier, he's a very good scorer, man. And you have Poole as well. So you get a dynamic backcourt with two scorers. I immediately think about the Kings, for example, man. What
Mm-hmm.
makes the Kings special? The Aaron Fox is an automatic paint touch. And I think the Wizards need one. Collier is the easy bet, of course, because he's now projected to go top five at least. And the Wizards will likely get a pick in the top five.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I don't think it will be a good season, so it's
It's a
very
safe
likely
bet.
to
Yeah.
happen.
I think everybody should be on board with that at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But I like Collier a lot, more so as an advantage creator for others and himself, an automatic paint touch. Especially if you like to move the ball around, he's a very good passer, man, and he reads the game very well. On the defensive end, I don't think he's a risk long term because athleticism should make up for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's an easy thing to say. But if you look at his feel for the game, he's built for the NBA. He's showing it at USC very early on. So I like him the most, to be honest, from the guys we were going to discuss. I think he's in Wizards reach as well.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. We'll keep following the chat here as we get going. John says he's excited for this. Appreciate that, John. Joe Swam hitting us up with a good afternoon, guys. Appreciate you, Joe. And then it never makes no sense. Said Ersin's big board seemed a little far off consensus. and wanted to know, do you have Deshawn Harris-Smith as a top 5 pick? We'll get to DHS here a little bit. You and I differ on that one, but so we'll circle back here. I just wanted to acknowledge the chat as we're going through that. So thanks for following along, everybody. So Collier, I guess my question to you, Ersin, is he like a one position player to you? I think a lot of these teams are trying to go for guys that have like multi-positional versatility. To me, he is sort of strictly going to guard like other point guards in the NBA, whereas some of these other guys we might talk about, there's an opportunity for them to guard 1 through 3, if not even more than that. So who do you think he guards in the NBA?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man, because in the NBA you switch so much. He's the target.
Sure.
If you put him against the taller wing, maybe 6'6", 6'7", he's going to be the target.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, if I look at, for example, the Kings, I use the Kings as an example because I want to move it on later in the episode, because I think that's a good example of the direction Wizards should go. But they kind of target Fox as well, right? But they have Monk next to him. I think it depends on the guy next to him, because his size is going to not work in his favor.
Sure.
But to be honest, I think it's a bit overrated as well, size. I think it's important, but it's not that important as much as we talk about today. I think the most thing is he's going to be the focus on switches. But if he improves as a defender and with his athleticism, I don't see a reason why he should be a liability on the defense in the long run. Early on, definitely, but that's a Wizards thing, because they're going to build for a couple of years. So,
yeah, I think for them, it's just you got to continue to get more modern. So, can he shoot? Can he get into the paint? Can he create for others? But also, can he play off ball? I think that's always going to be a big question mark for a lot of these guys. You don't want anyone that is kind of like too pigeonholed into one particular set of things here. The thing I've liked about Collier so far is he's playing with another really good guard at USC. So I think, when you're coming in right away and you're playing next to Boogie Ellis, who is a very good college player, and you can immediately sort of coexist with him. And not only are they just coexisting, they seem to thrive, and it's not a my turn, his turn. It's a really good like 2-man dynamic. I think that's healthy for him. Joe asks says in the comments that the Collier is a shorter size, but he's a big, strong, shorter guy, if that makes sense. I think that's a good point, Joe. This is a solidly built dude. He's not going to take, 5 years to physically mature enough to bang with other NBA guards. Like, he looks like an NFL running back right now. So I think that it will, kind of help him make that transition a little more smoothly. He's not going to just get bully balled. All right. So that's probably good on Collier here for the moment, at least for kind of a starting point. I think the Wizards' point of attack defense has been rough, and I think that's probably somewhere Collier could be good longer term. So that's nice. But I want to talk to somebody who brings a little bit more size to the table, and that's Stephon Castle from Connecticut, also 19 years old, but more of like a hybrid-y kind of player. He's a 6'6", air quotes guard. He can do a little bit of everything here. And I think that's going to be kind of the appeal for him. There seems to be one of these big creators that moves into the lottery every year. This is probably the most likely guy to be the one this year. You've had the Dyson Daniels, all these kind of guys in the past couple of years. And he seems like, the one sort of next in that mold. Really good in the pick and roll already. NBA teams run a ton of pick and roll. So this is a guy that can come in and make those high level reads, and you could maybe even run like him and Koulibaly 2-man game. Like, I think that's kind of an exciting premise. He throws great lobs to guys like Clingan, who is so huge he could probably catch everything anyway. But I guess the question for Castle is, can he shoot it? And how do you see his game really translating in the NBA? That's been the question for some of these guys, like a Dyson Daniels, not necessarily a point guard. And maybe that's kind of held him back, that he doesn't fit into exactly one role. He's a little maybe too versatile and not specialized enough. So give us your take on Castle, pretty please.
I think it's a tough one for the Wizards, man, because what type of point guards are you getting? I think that's a question I asked in the beginning with Castle. I think if I look at the NBA scenario, I'm just going to focus on his NBA role.
Mm-hmm.
He has to play with Koulibaly together, and he's not going to be the full-time point guard to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
Because if I look at the Wizards roster, you have to have a good scorer next to him.
Yep.
I think with Collier, he can take that scoring load. But with Castle, I'm not really on the same level with him, So I don't think it's going to be his NBA job. For example, if you put him on a team like the New Orleans Pelicans,
Sure.
which focus on Ingram, Zion. I think in a situation like that, Castle is going to thrive. But with the Wizards, it's Poole, it's Kuzma, and if it's going to stay that way, I think it's best to either change direction or to accept that he's going to be a top 10 pick who is not going to produce a lot in terms of points. But
Mm,
if I look at this game, I think the size definitely helps. I think his feel for the game as a pick and roll playmaker is very good. And he chose to go to Connecticut. He chose to go to a team that's going to defend the title. Of course, he declared to them earlier than they won title. So I think he doesn't run shy away from the challenge. And if I look at this game and try to compare it to the NBA, I'm in a little tough position because what is he going to do? I don't think he's going to be your leading point guard with a lot of ball touches. I don't think that should be his role in the NBA. I also see him as a good connector piece that can guard 1, 2, 3, that can play 1, 2, 3 as well, but
mm.
not as a full-time point guard. More so as a secondary creator, more so as a scorer for himself, but he has to have scorers next to him. I think a team like the Pelicans, for example, would be much better fit for him rather than the Wizards.
That leads me to think he's more of like a Dyson Daniels connective type guy than a Josh Giddey, who's probably better with the ball in his hands a
Yeah,
little bit more. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
yeah, and that's the risk. I don't think with young point guard, the risk is, especially on a team like the Wizards, how many ball touches is he going to have? Kuzma wants his share.
Sure.
Koulibaly is going to get a bigger role. And of course, you have Jordan Poole, who says it's his team. So if he doesn't get the ball, then we have a problem, right? So I think that's why you have to have a potential franchise chasing player in terms
Mhm,
of the whole package, which leads me towards Collier, rather than a guy like Stephon Castle. And I love to be wrong about him, but
mhm,
the way I see him, he's going to be a better off as a connected piece because the physical tools and the size won't be used as a full-time point guard. He's going to do a lot of more things. I think he's going to be asked a lot more, and that's why I think he should be going to a team where they have the fundamentals, the base for him. For
mhm.
example, the Pelicans, they need one. I think it will be a much better fit there.
One of the things I do like about Castle potentially here is the willingness to like take a backseat to some of these other guys on his team. Like they're a loaded team, honestly, offensively,
Yeah,
and he seems okay so far getting these other guys involved. He's playing next to Clingan and Cam Spencer and Tristan Newton, and that's really the role that Andre Jackson played for Connecticut last year. So he seems to be able to step into that facility, like at least secondary creator kind of role for them. So I think that's a nice benefit here. Josue Gonzalez asked in the chat if we could talk a little bit about Tyrese Proctor. That's the next guy I have on my list here. 6'5" guard, 19 years old at Duke. I wasn't in love with him, honestly, last year when I watched Duke play. I kind of didn't get the appeal as somebody who's being talked about as a lottery prospect. And one of the things I'm trying to remind myself here is that this is a guy that reclassified to get to college a year early, and he is old enough to be a sophomore right now. So it's not like a crazy jump, but it's a big jump for these guys to do that, earlier without all the full years of high school basketball and that sort of thing. But Proctor last year averaged 11 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds over the final 20 games. So he really trended up. Most of those were Duke wins. Didn't turn the ball over a ton, 4 assists to about 2 turnovers a game, a little less than 2 turnovers. But he played really, really good point of attack defense. And I think if you're the Wizards, like, that's got to be something you consider. Of the three guys we've talked about so far, I think there's probably the best bet that Proctor ends up the best defensively of the three of them. Where are you at with Proctor's overall game, and do you kind of see the same defensive upside that I see for him?
I think he has the most mature game. Of course, he's a sophomore, the others are freshmen, but I would
Sure.
say have said the same thing last year.
Okay.
I think with Proctor, the thing we have to take in consideration is he had needed some time to adjust to the college level.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he shot so poorly from 3-point range, for example, early on in the season.
Mm.
And he didn't really pick it up until January. But if I look at this game, the knock I have on him is too ball dominant for my taste.
Okay.
He has the ball, he has that ball in the sense to make something happen. But on defensive end, he makes up a lot for it because you can trust him in the point of attack. You can trust
Mm.
him in a late game situation where he has to, you know, take his team, carry his team defensively. As a playmaker, he's the best guy after three by far. But as a scorer, I'm not really
Yeah.
that high on him in terms of what does an NBA team need. The thing I want to see from an NBA point guard is able to get downhill, generate multiple paint touches, get to the paint easily, and that's where he struggles.
Yep.
He doesn't really get downhill that easily. He's very crafty, but at the NBA level, with different athleticism, with the different type of defenders you're going to face, that's a risk you're going to take. And of course, he's going to improve as a sophomore. I think he's going to be one of Duke's best players with Filipowski, of course. But the things I see is he doesn't really, convince me that he's going to be getting downhill as effectively as you want to see. Of course, I see people use the standard better spacing argument, but that doesn't apply to everyone, because you have to be able to get downhill. But on the other hand, his handles are very good. He's very crafty. He knows what he does. He doesn't drive without a plan. He reads the game very well. So I think with him, you're getting a guy like Tyus Jones with a lot more scoring upside. And is that worth for the Wizards? I don't think Tyrese Proctor is that much of a fit for the Washington Wizards, to be honest. I think he has to go to a team with where they need a leading guard, where they can give him the usage that he needs in terms of ball touch. I don't think the Wizards should do that with Tyrese Proctor.
To me, he's more of the like DeLon Wright kind of player in the NBA, where he's like a really good role player, not a lot of star potential. He could be a really good defensive player. Maybe let him do some catch and shoot stuff. I think that's the one thing Proctor does pretty well so far is his, catch and shoot ability is probably pretty advanced compared to some of these guys. And I saw a comparison of him of Killian Hayes with a better jump shot. Like, I don't know that that's somebody Wizards fans would want to see taken, with like a top 5, top 7 pick kind of thing. If I were a team picking 15 through 17 or something like that, that'd be much more appealing to me because I personally just don't see the star potential. But again, he's young and could be trending up. But even watching that Michigan State game, he just seemed to struggle with when to pick his spots, and those are all things you could learn. But I'm just personally not as in on him as some folks here. Other thing, Alexander Wilson asked in the chat, can we talk about Alex Sarr? Yeah, we're going to just run through some guards here first, and then we'll transition into the lottery bigs in a minute. So we're almost to the kind of back half of the lottery kind of caliber guard prospects real quick. One guy I want to talk about is just someone I'm fascinated with. I don't know that he's going to have a good enough year to get into this Wizards range, but Garwey Dual from Providence, freshman guard. He's got an 8'8" standing reach and a 7-foot wingspan, and he's just like a nightmare for people defensively already. So if you're the Wizards, the idea of putting like a Garwey, Bilal, Denny group out there defensively is like really intriguing for me. I think the offense, like the shot, is a little weird with the foot positioning, but I didn't think he'd be able to shoot it well. And I think at the time of this recording, he's like 4 or 5 from 3 so far from the season. So looks pretty good. But yeah, if he's just going to lock people up and be a nightmare in transition, to me, like the long-term upside makes the most sense of guys probably projected like back half of the lottery right now. I think this is someone who could rise over the course of the year, though, if he can continue to show the shooting and the productivity. Where are you at with Garwey?
Man, if he gets stronger and he can show he's going to improve physically and maintain the same thing, I think he's going to be a top 5 pick. It's very clear.
Wow, I love
the NBA is looking for guys like him. Great advantage creators. Of course, the shot doesn't look good, but to be honest, I've seen worse shots, and he
looks really off balance though. Like the upper body stuff actually looks okay to me. He just looks kind of like off balance or weirdly positioned, maybe.
Yeah, I think if he works on that, but he's so good inside the arc. I don't think he should work on that. It's very crazy because the 3-point shot is one of the most important things, especially for a leading guard, because you have to have that, especially in isolation when you have to get a team bucket off the dribble. But I don't think he should focus on that very early. He should just do what he's going to do very well. I think he gets downhill with ease. I think in terms of rim pressure, he's the best guy that we discussed so far. He's better than Collier on that end. I think as a playmaker, it's still a bit tough because they have another guy, Jaden, on the team, which I like a lot too. But how's Providence going to play? Providence last season was not a good 3-point shooting team. At least they didn't shoot that much.
Yeah.
And this season, they will have to do it more. I think with Kim English, they will do so. Yep. The early results are, I would say, it's 80% on 5 attempts. You can say whatever you want. about the low volume, but I don't care about low volume, man. He's
Okay.
going in, right? So I think if he shots 35% for the year, that's good.
Oh yeah, you would
I'll
take
take
that.
it.
Yeah.
But I think he has real star power in the long run, man. Especially if he gets stronger. That's my biggest knock on him because as a
Mm.
defender, he's gonna lock you up.
Yep.
I think he plays with a certain attitude that you don't have in every player. For example, Collier has the same thing as well. Just like I'm gonna lock you up, no matter how much taller you am than me. But Dual has the size to match, man. I think he's going to grow into his body a lot more. To me, he just looks a lot younger than he is, man. I think if you saw, I think he's 70 years old, maybe junior or senior in high school. That's how he looks.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think if I look at him in the long run, I see a star, for example. That's the guy I would target if I were the Wizards. I think you have to have a plan for a guy, but for him, you change your plan, man. I think if I were the Wizards, I would get him, trade Poole, and just try Koulibaly and Dual, man. Just focus on those two guys in your backcourt. And you don't have to have one full-time point guard. You have to have multiple creators on one team. I think Dual moves the needle, definitely, with what you want to do long term, but the Wizards have to have a plan. And looking back at the history, it's not fair to the current front office, but they draft a lot of guys top 10, and they never had a plan for any of them. I think Koulibaly, they have a plan for him. I think with their pick this year, it's going to be the same thing. I think this front office knows what it's doing, especially with the things they did in the off season. They know what they're doing. But Dual, I like him, man. I'm still very cautious because if he doesn't get stronger, it's going to be a tough thing to adjust at NBA level. But if he does, man, top five without a doubt, without a doubt.
I've yet to see like a really good prospect that didn't maximize their talent because they didn't become at least like league average from a strength perspective.
Yeah.
Like he'll get more solid even if he doesn't like totally fill out physically. He'll get, I don't know, more lithe, strong, I guess. But to me, this is the kind of guy that makes sense for like what Will Dawkins and company seem to do. He's the home run swing
Yeah.
kind of guy, and they weren't really afraid to potentially reach for somebody like Koulibaly. To me, he fits their mold of just like hyper athletes that could play lots of positions and be super switchable. And I think again, the shot, like he's making them so far, so I can't knock on it too much, and it's not like broken. So anyway,
Yeah, I think it's a bit overrated for example. It's important, but
yeah,
you have to have certain, how we say that, certain context to it. I think
hmm
it's very early.
yeah,
It's very early. If he shoots like this for the whole season and the shots don't go in anymore, then we have a conversation. But if it
totally.
works for him, it works, So sometimes it's just easy as that.
hmm Yep, agreed. All right, these next two, this one's really interesting for me, and we've got DJ Wagner from Kentucky that I've got on the list here, and I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember his dad. He's another microwave scorer kind of guy. I don't see DJ necessarily as like a pure point guard type. I think he's a more score in bunches kind of guy. It's going to be interesting. Like how well does he shoot it? How well does he finish, especially in the SEC as a freshman? I think that's a question. But decision making, he didn't look particularly good in this Kansas game. Deshawn Harris and guys like that were able to kind of lock him up a little bit. So, this is interesting. I think not a guy I would take probably with a top 5 pick or something like that. But if I were a guy that needed an offensive minded guard, they list him at 6'3", also appears smaller than that to me. So if I'm going to take a small guard, he better be able to like light shit up offensively and hopefully create enough for others to make the pick worth it. So I don't know. Where are you at with DJ Wagner?
It's a tough one, man, because if you look at Kentucky, they already play Kansas.
Yep.
Of the biggest opponent they can play all year.
Mm.
And these other guys, they didn't. They played easier competition, to put it
Sure.
like that. And with Kentucky, that roster is just so much overlap, man. I think it should be Rob Dillingham's team. At least he's proven it in the scrimmage. He's carrying that offense. I think, but with Rob Dillingham, is he going to be full-time point guard? I don't think he should. Man. He should be playing more so as a pure scorer type of guy. Of course, it's not unfair. It's unfair to him to put him in a box like that. But for example, in a Tyler Hero type of in role, he's going to score a lot. That's his primary job. But with DJ Wagner, I think he's one of those guys. If I were him, I would go one and done because he has a lot more to learn, just like Tyrese Proctor. I think if you look at the potential, He's a very smart player, man. A lot of basketball IQ. His dad, I think his dad was an NBA player. His grandfather was an NBA player as well. He's going to be a third generation guy in the NBA, but he shouldn't rush it, because if I look at him, I see a player that knows what he's doing. I think the basketball IQ comes with coming from a basketball family, but he made very advanced reads in high school, man. But he had the ball in his hands so much that eventually it would come. And I think the biggest challenge for him is learning how to play without being the number one option, without being the star, without being the guy. I think
Mhm.
that's why Kentucky was a good choice for him because now he has to earn his bread, man. He has to earn his role. I think Rob Dillingham is already ahead of him as of now. At least if I were Cal, I would put him ahead of the picking order, and that other guy as well. The what's his name?
I mean, Reed Shepard was really good in
Yeah,
their
that
in
guy.
their opening game. The other freshman, Justin Edwards, totally disappeared. I think that's just going to be how it is for Kentucky this year, where one guy steps up some night, and you're going to see like some really
Yeah,
big
exactly.
swings from some of these guys. Where if
And
Wagner
it's
was really
Kentucky,
good in
right?
the next game and Dillingham didn't do much, I think that wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah.
So for them, you're probably just looking, for the flashes of upside.
And it's
Um,
Kentucky, right? You have to sacrifice to play in a team like Duke or Kentucky.
sure.
And I think if teams go back to his high school film, they see a lot of great things, man. He's a very good live dribble passer. In the pick and roll, I didn't like him that much, but he showed that he can play for others, create
Hmm.
for others, but he didn't really do it because it was his show. He would rather go for a bucket. He was a bucket getter. He played with that he had a lot of fun playing basketball.
Yep.
So if teams were going to focus on him, I would wait a year if I were him. Just grow into your body, mature your game. I think Kentucky is the best program to do it, although they are proven to have very good one-on-one guards. But if I look at a guy like Quickly, he was there for what, 2 years, 3 years? Yeah,
Two
if I
years.
were him, I would stay, man. I think DJ Wagner is going to be a very good player in the NBA down the stretch. But if he goes one and done, nah, man, I don't think he's going to be in a good situation. So for him, for the Wizards, I wouldn't even consider him for this year, at least.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a guy that can play his way into their range. Couple questions from the chat. It never makes no sense. Ask: Is Brian Keefe known for fixing people's shots? I don't know if he's known specifically as a
No.
shot doctor. I think he's pretty good about helping guys like add to their bag and things like that. I think that was something Kevin Durant mentioned. Helping him to get in and out of certain moves was impressive. He also wanted to know if you've seen Carlton Carrington. He's from the Baltimore area. Put up a triple double in his first game for Pittsburgh. I've seen him. I don't see like a one and done pro, but he's definitely something that I want to keep an eye on longer term, and I think he's an interesting player.
I haven't seen him, man. I wanted to
He's a
watch
fun
Pitt
watch.
for Guillermo Diaz Graham and his brother,
Yep.
but haven't done it yet. So
Yeah, he's worth adding to the list just because at the very least he'll be a fun college player as a freshman this year. And then Josue asked, which of the Kentucky guards are you higher on? Sounds like you're higher on Dillingham. I'm higher on Wagner, but I really do think it'll depend on the night and the matchup and things like that too.
it depends on the context what you're looking for.
Yeah,
If
for
you're
sure.
looking for a point guard, I'm higher on DJ Wagner, but not this year.
Yeah.
If you're looking for more of that dynamic scorer off the bench, but
Mhm.
although it's unfair for me to put him in a box like that, but I think Dillingham is his game screams that he's going to do that at the
Yeah,
NBA
he's a
level.
microwave for sure. Like
Yeah,
he'll
man.
he'll get you some points quick. Last guard I want to talk about here in the lottery range, in kind of in depth, is Nicola Topic. This is someone I have not watched play at all this year. Everybody says he's like terrific at navigating pick and roll already, like an elite kind of decision maker in those situations, and got really great feel for the game. A lot of the stereotypes people throw out of European guards. He's a bigger player at 6'6", 18 years old, playing in a really good league already. That sounds like the question marks kind of come defensively, potentially, I guess. Ersin, you've seen him. What's your thoughts on Topic?
I've seen it for a couple of years, and to be honest, you put the nail on the head, man. For example, every European guard, great fit for the game, pick and roll playmaker, but
Mm,
that's what he's going to do at the NBA level. But I've seen people put him in the top 10, top 5. It's too much for me, man. I'm not
yeah,
on that boat. He's going to be a first round caliber guy to me because if I look at his body, that the lack of athleticism is going to hurt him.
sure,
I think the difference between the NBA, college, and the European game, and that's why it's important to always take your time to evaluate these guys, is the different rules is one, FIBA.
sure.
The court side is different. That's important. And in Europe, it's not really your one man show. It's not really your individual freedom to do your things your way is not really there. But with him, they give him a lot of freedom compared to a
Mm,
lot of other teams. So that's something in his advantage. So he's going to show what he's going to do at the NBA level. But on defensive end, I have my worries. I think he's going to be a guy that if you know how to focus on his weak points, that you're going to exploit very easily. I think in the defensive end, that's where he needs to mature his game. But that's also the thing that comes with most European guard prospects. That they're not really known as defenders.
yep.
They're more so known, as these guys are going to contribute to offense, make a team better, especially with their basketball IQ. And with this guy, basketball IQ is off the charts, man. I think he's making live dribble passes. Last year, that was like this guy should be a pro at 70 years old. What is he doing at this level? But
Right.
this year, Mega Basket making the starting point guard. So they really, and Mega Basket is a very interesting team because they really know how to get NBA level talent and how to give them enough freedom to stay within the boundaries of European basketball and still put these guys in the looks for the NBA, put them in the best position they can. But with Topic, I think the defense varies a lot more than people will mention. They will more so focus on the things that that's not really common in the NBA. We have so much pick and roll, but the real elite pick and roll playmakers are not very few of them in the NBA level. I
Mm,
think he can be one, but he has a lot of things you have to add to it as your defensive. As the defensive end is one of the first things, and I think as a shooter, he's a good shooter, but I think he knows how to get to his spots at the FIBA rules. I think a lack of spacing is benefiting him, as crazy as it sounds, because he is more comfortable in close gaps without a lot of space. I think if you have a lot of space, it will either make it easier for him. That's the easy thing. But to be honest, I don't think it's going to be as easy for him at the NBA level because so much gap between the level of athleticism, and he's a guy that just does everything out of instincts, man. And these players take time. And I think drafting him top 10 would be unfair because he would be in the same position as like Nikola Jovic, for example. Not to mention because they both siblings came from the same team, but if you draft him, you better have a long-term plan because you have to have a lot of patience. And if you
I've
have,
seen.
he will going to be a great player. But for the Wizards, not a top 10 guy I would consider.
Yeah, I think he seems like a trendy pick for people to say they want him with a top 5 pick right now, just because
Yeah,
he's been one of the few guys playing. He got a head start on some of the college basketball guys. So when people are watching him and no one else, I think sometimes that some of those guys get a head start. I think
yeah, and
that's
he's
why.
killing it, so it
Yeah, he's
makes
doing
it
great.
easier.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that probably is a good transition into our first big here. Also, Alexander Sarr, another guy with the NBL that got people got to look at early, and I think he rose up some boards because he was the only guy that people were really watching. Last thing, I just want to do this one super quickly to touch on it, just because it came up already. Deshawn Harris-Smith of Maryland. This is a guy you love. I want
Yeah,
to love him as a Maryland alum. Saw him in person a couple times this weekend, and I personally think it's more likely he never plays in the NBA than he plays in the NBA next year. I guess what have you seen from Harris Smith that you were so high on him?
man, it was purely the high school thing, man. Because I
Okay,
think the difference now is, if I look at his game, his body, he's already so mature, man. He's built like a tank at 6'5". That's the
that's true.
thing where I started watching him, and he get to his spot so easily. I think he played with so much confidence; it didn't really matter, and he was so strong at the rim with both hands. I think what I liked about him is he could transition into having the ball in his hands too much.
Hmm.
That wasn't really his thing,
Yep.
but he was more comfortable playing off others as well. I think he should have played more as a cutter. I think he's more so as that wing type of guy.
Okay.
But he should be a guard at the NBA level because Maryland, yeah, but they have young, right? So he's not in
That's going to be the problem is he's not going to
yeah,
get enough on ball reps to
yeah,
show that.
exactly.
So
I think he needs those, man, to
yeah,
really
coming back
showcase
next year
himself.
and being
But
the
it's
lead
more
guard
so
would be big.
the combination of touch. His touch at the rim is incredible, man. I think if you look at him in 10 games from now, he should showcase it at that. If he doesn't, I'm with you. Then we should
Yeah,
wait here. But right now, I see a guy that's going to be one of the best player in wings in potential in the NBA. That's how I am because of the body, because of the touch is already so good, man. And he needs to work on a lot of other things, especially off ball. Although he was comfortable at the high school level, but it's still the high school level. And D1 basketball, especially at the high level at Maryland, is a different beast. And
for sure.
playing at the top high school. He was playing for with it Paul Six.
All the six. Yeah, they're really good.
They're a good program, but for him, it's for me, it's more so wishful thinking because I saw him for the first time. It's like I'm going to watch this guy until I'm tired of watching this guy. And then I saw one to Maryland. I was like, great choice. But Young is there. Is he going to be there? I was hoping he would leave, but didn't happen. But
Yeah, we'll see if he can scale over the course of the year. I want you to be right because if he plays like he's a one and done pick, that means my team is pretty good. Shout out Terps, got the Maryland shirt on right now as we're
rough
talking
start,
here.
bro. Rough start, but
All right,
it happens
yeah,
sometimes.
for sure. All right, moving on to the bigs here. Alexander Sarr. If you search my Twitter handle and Alex Sarr, I think I'm probably the first Wizards person to mention him, mostly because I loved Olivier Sarr, and he's actually looking kind of good in limited minutes this year. And I figured the younger, higher potential version of him in Alex would be pretty impressive. The big thing here, I think, is just as teams kind of try to be more switchable and things like that, you can easily envision Sarr as a guy who can both protect the rim and switch on the perimeter. He can be a help defender, but also like get back and recover. And I think the defensive versatility is probably what sets him apart. The shot is like a little bit of a knuckleball, but he makes enough of them, or at least theoretically could make enough of them to show some value there. I personally don't think he gives you like that much other offensive upside, but I could be wrong there. Maybe he can put the ball on the floor a little bit and attack some guys. And I don't know that I see wing kind of skills with him, but if he can do enough other stuff, I think that makes him really intriguing. So what do you think about Alex Sarr?
Man, I'm really in a tough position with him because I see why people have him as a top two, top three guy, the number one.
Sure.
To be honest, I've seen it all. I've talked to a couple of guys and they mentioned different things. But to me he's the trendy guy. He's the
Yeah.
sexy prospect because you have Chet, you have Wembanyama. These are the guys that you're looking for right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you have him. And with Overtime Elite last year, he was not good, but
Yeah.
overtime is a different context. He was there to work on his game, his work
Mm-hmm.
on his athletic tools, how to get more into his body, how to use his advantage. He was more so going to school than showcasing how good he was.
Right.
I think going to the NBA was always in his plan. I think so because
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
with the thing what you have is European prospect is when they're playing on their own, they're very good. When they play Team USA, they if they survive, they they're going to be good.
Yeah.
And with him, the athleticism was off the charts. And if you look at his defensive possessions, especially the G League Ignite games, man, he locked around Holland up a couple of times. Like, man,
Yeah,
this is
true.
crazy. This is going to be a guy that's going to be put in a situation with a lot of unrealistic expectations because if you're going to draft in top three, he's going to be a differentiator on both ends. Chet is going to be one. Wembanyama is going to be one. Those are two difference makers for a franchise. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Alex Sarr is mostly going to make a difference with his defense.
Yeah, I think
On
so
the
too.
offensive end, I don't really see an advanced role for him, to be honest. Of course, he's showing different things, but that's more so changing wishful thinking. I don't really care that much about the shot, but more so about if I look at this game, if I look
Mm-hmm.
at the things that he's going to do at an NBA floor, they're mostly going to be on the defensive end. I don't drafting a guy like that in the top five. You're better hoping to have a guy like Tyson Chandler in today's NBA, something like that. Just is 100% a great defender, defensive player of the year winner, but offensively he's not going to do a lot. You have to have guys that can take over, score for two, for example, to really make plays for him. But for the Wizards, as crazy as it sounds, man, if you have your backcourt settled, he's a guy I would target. I would go for a top 10 pick, to be honest. Because the guy, the defender that he is, Gafford is not the defender that he is. He plays with a lot of energy, and I like him as a rim protector. But that's where it ends for me with Gafford. But with Alex Sora, I think he can be, for example, what Lively is doing on the offense in Dallas. I think he can be what on the defense, but he can impact the Wizards
Mm-hmm.
immediately. But he won't be a team star or something. That's why I'm really cautious in putting him in my top 10. I see him as a lottery guy for sure, but
Yeah.
top five, nah, not there.
Yeah, I think the chances of Sarr being a elite role player are more likely than they are him being a star at any point. Could he be like 7 foot tall Brandon Clark? I mean, like I think that's kind of where I'm
That's
at
the
with him. Which
unfair thing of the NBA, You
yeah,
have so offensively, you have to be good if you want to be in that type of conversation. And with
hmm
him, That's where my doubt is, man. I don't think he's going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that might be how we have to reframe for this draft when there aren't kind of those high star potential guys. Like to me, Ron Holland or one of these guys has more star potential, and I'd rather take them with a number one pick despite any positional, redundancy and things like that. But of the bigs, Sarr is probably the most impressive. I think the next guy on the list for most people seems to be UConn's Donovan Clingan. This guy is absolutely massive. He didn't play a ton last year behind Dama Sanogo, who was a more ready to play college guy. For anyone not familiar with Clingan in high school, he was kind of like doughy, to be honest with you. So he made immediate strides last year physically. And if you look at like the per 36 numbers for him, he was crazy productive. So this is just a huge dude. He's different than Sarr. Like he's going to protect the rim because he's just so massive. He's going to eclipse somebody driving to the basket. I think he'll be like the best drop coverage big in the league potentially. I mean, like he's that kind of defensive caliber guy where he may not even put up huge block numbers because he could deter people from going to the rim so much, which is equally important. He'll set good screens for people. In high school, again, he showed a decent amount of like, high post facilitation and things like that. He's got good touch. I don't know if he shoots it yet, but this is a dude that already like wasn't in like elite shape and things like that, and made massive production in short amounts of time. So I think that's why everyone projects him to be like ridiculous, for this year. So I might actually be leaning. There's a world where I could see Clingan, over Sarr. I'm not a big fan of taking a big anywhere in the top 10 unless you think he can be like a generational player. And I don't know that Clingan can do that, but I don't know that Sarr can do that either. So I think it's just kind of a different, what do you need and how do you want to build a team and a defensive scheme around them?
Nah, man, I'm much higher on Clingan, to be honest.
Wow.
Much higher. The thing I have with him is the free throw shooting is not good.
Sure.
That's the easy one because I don't like to use free throw sense as indicator of touch, but with a big man I have to.
Yeah.
If he's going to shoot 50%, there's no way he's going to play a lot of fourth quarter minutes because it's easy to take a guy out, to take pace out of the game, one, and to take a team out in terms of just hack it. But it's unfair to him because I think the touch should improve. I think the form doesn't look that crazy.
Yeah.
And yes, he's 7'2", man, but he moves like he's 6'5", 6'6". That's the crazy part with him. And he's already so good defensively, man. I think his touch around the rim is very good as well. He was more so used as a play finisher because that's something that he's going to do at the NBA level. And on the defensive end, he can guard. I think if he guards too deep in the perimeter, he's going to be burned. I think he's a bit overrated on that end. I don't think he's that switchable as people make it seem because I read something like, man, he's so switchable. I was like, well, man,
he's purely a drop coverage big to me. He might just be like a really effing good one. So if you're okay playing that way, I think Clingan.
And the court of college basketball is very deceptive, because with more spacing, there's no way he's going to be that comfortable. But at the rim, it's all in, man. And to be honest, if I were the Wizards, you better have, just like I said, you better have your backcourt set because he's going to be a very important role player. But to be honest, that's something not to talk down on American centers, but with American center, you don't have a lot of good screeners.
Yeah.
That's something you don't have. And to be honest, he's a very good screener, man.
I think so.
And that's something he's going to fix the center position for Team USA. And I think he's going to be a very good player who should be drafted in the top 10, other than Sarr, who don't have in the top 10. I have Clingan at number 3, I think, in my preseason board. I think I have him at 6 or 7 right now. And he's going to stay there, man, because he's going to be a game changer for every franchise he's going to. Because you know what you're getting, and he's very good at it. He doesn't have to do a lot more.
Not to make like the lazy stereotype here, but the success of somebody like a Walker Kessler, where they're so big, but they're almost exclusively a drop big, is probably something that NBA teams are looking at and like, wow, can Clingan be a Walker Kessler on steroids kind of guy? So I think that'll be interesting.
Wait,
here.
1 second, man. Sorry, your sound went away. I'm having some issues with my earplugs. Sorry about that, man.
That's okay. We're coming through okay now. If anybody's still listening to this in the chat,
terrible, man. I have to fix it. Please give me 1 second, man.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll keep chit-chatting while you go. If somebody in the chat can give me a heads up whether or not I'm coming through, okay, that would be super helpful for any of the folks still following along here. The next two guys we're going to try to talk about is Duke's
One more
Kyle.
second. Sorry, man.
That's okay. So we got Duke's Kyle Filipowski. Next name
I
to
think
talk
it should
about here.
work now. So, can you say something? Sorry, man. I don't know what happened, man. The
That's okay.
earplugs didn't really give sound anymore.
Yeah, can you hear me? So everybody else can hear both of us just fine. So it's whether you can hear us.
Please give me 1 second, man. I'm coming back in the room, okay?
Sounds
Sorry,
good.
Matt. 1 second.
That's okay. It wouldn't be an episode of Bleav in Wizards if there wasn't some amount of technical difficulties here. That's sort of been our norm as of late. But that's okay. We'll just power through. We'll do what we do. Thanks for the updates that were sounding okay. So yeah, Duke's Kyle Filipowski, sophomore, came back for a year. I don't think this is a guy that plays his way into the lottery, but he's probably the best offensive big in the entire draft. I think he's a floor spacer. He can create for others out of the high post. So I think he's a name that will get some attention throughout.
Matt, sorry, man. I feel terrible, man.
That's okay.
I think
It's
I
all
have
good.
some issues with my earplug. I stopped hearing you, man.
That's okay.
But
it's all good.
Right now I'm good again. Sorry.
Cool. That's okay. So I talked about Kyle Filipowski there for a minute, and the last one I want to talk about is Izan Almansa. He's going to play for G League Ignite this year. He's a Spanish player. This guy's just like won at every level. He was the MVP of the Under-19 World Cup as an underage player, MVP of the U18 European Championships, MVP of the U17 World Cup in 2022. Like, the dude just wins, and he's just a really productive guy. I don't think I see the NBA future for him that a lot of people do. To me, he's not particularly mobile or switchable. He's not really a rim protector. He doesn't really shoot it. So it's just he's got like a much more limited chance of his kind of archetype player being successful. He's a good rebounder. He's a good play finisher. I think he can create for others a little bit. To me, he's like kind of a poor man's Alperen Şengün, where it's just like you have to have such like elite feel to be able to cover up for the things you don't do well. And so I would shy away from him being a lottery level player, just simply because I have question marks about fit. But he could be also, and I had the same things about Şengün, and now he looks really good. So I don't know. To me, they'll both probably be guys that always get kind of picked on defensively, whereas these other guys we're talking about mostly could anchor a defense. So Filipowski, probably like a 4 on offense, but can he guard 5s? So there's some questions with him, some questions with Almansa. So those are two guys I don't think end up in the Wizards range, but I thought were at least worth talking about. Thoughts on either guy real quickly before we kind of close up here?
Man, to start with Almansa, I think the tough part with prospects like him is to be, for example, Spain. What Spain does is from the U30s all the way to the national team, they play a certain way. They always play a certain way. And to be a big man in a system like that is very beneficial because you know what you're going to do, what you have to do to stay on the court. And Almansa is very good, man. I think his touch is something that caught my attention. Although he looked very bad against the Salt Lake City Stars, but that's okay. His first game, I don't value that. But looking at his whole tournaments, he showed one thing consistently, that his playbook, offensive playbook, was very advanced. And his touch around the rim is incredible. He sets hard screens, and if he needs to, he can move to the perimeter, but that's not the way they play. So shooting is not really something that you see a lot from him. So that's why it's very deceptive to see at this resume with all these MVPs and say, that guy is going to be a top 10 pick. Of course, I would say the same thing. But at the NBA level, it's different, man. You have to make him useful. You have to have a very good guard in the backcourt. If he plays on the Suns with guys like CP3, etc., of course he's going to be good. But that's not realistic. Yep. For Almansa, for example, a year earlier, I didn't see the NBA future for him, despite him winning all these things. But one thing has changed, man. He grew into his body. He looks a lot more as a grown man right now. And he's still 18 years old. People forget that. And the reason that he went to the G League Ignite is that his camp already knows that he's not going to, in terms of fit for the NBA, that he was not really at that level. So that's the only thing he should focus on. I think Coach Jason Hart has a plan for him. He's going to feature him in a lot of different styles of play.
I think he's going to be an NBA player. He's going to be picked in the lottery because the long-term potential and you know what you're getting with him is going to outweigh certain doubts. Because on
Sure.
the defensive end, I agree with you. He's not a good rim protector at all.
Yeah.
He could be a decent one. And if I look at, for example, not to pick on Gafford or something, but the thing that makes me lean towards liking Gafford is his energy. If you look pure fundamentally, he's not a good rim protector to me, but he plays with so much energy and he knows what he's doing. And he's the type of guy that is going to have the same thing. Not the athlete that he is, but in terms of the fundamentals making up for the natural skill. That's what Almansa is giving me. And with Filipowski, man, I'm not going to be contrary just to be contrary to the consensus, but
Sure.
I don't see it, man. I
Interesting.
don't see an NBA future, to be honest. I think the defensive end, that's where it's painful. But I listened to Rafael Bello the other day that the hip surgery and the hip issues, I didn't know that he had these. So that makes up.
Yeah, he's
that,
got he
that
looks a
shows
little
lot
more
of things,
spry
but
so far this year. For anyone not familiar, he had both surgery on both hips in the offseason. He's a little more
yeah, man, that's
mobile and flexible, but still not an
because
elite
I
switchable guy.
understand why he was so bad defensively because
Right, exactly.
he was so bad defense. I was like, this guy has no. If he's going to be a one and done, I would be surprised. But luckily for him, we went back because he can be a star in college. But for the NBA future, I don't really see it, man. Especially where he's marked right now, top 20. No, man, I don't really see it. Not to be disrespectful towards these guys. Everyone has his opinion. Is entitled to one. But I'm purely looking at the defensive side of the game, and that's where you're basically giving up points away. But on the offensive end, of course, he's going to be a pick and pop threat. There's going to be a real difference maker on that end. And the offensive versatility is off the charts, man. You can play him basically any way that you want.
Mhm.
And he's going to be the number one option and do for a reason. So for him, I'm out, but I'm trying to sell myself the idea because he's so good, you have to consider him.
Yeah, you have to have the right team around him to make him kind of work out, I think.
But for the Wizards, I don't like that.
Yeah, agreed. Especially not in this kind of range. If they found themselves with another late first round pick or something like that, maybe that's a different story. All right, so let's each give a couple names here. We'll go back and forth. We'll do these very quickly, just to close us out here. Who's a big kind of late first round, second round pick, or like a sleeper guy that you really like or higher on that you'd like to talk about here quickly? We'll do two bigs and two guards each.
A big man?
Yeah, let's go big first.
Mine is Guillermo Diaz-Graham, man, from Pittsburgh.
Okay. Tell folks about him. Why is he appealing to you?
I think the thing with him is he plays with his twin brother, so you have to really check who is who.
Sure.
But with Pittsburgh, they're going to be a fun team. I have to catch up. I haven't seen him this season at all.
Mm-hmm.
But with him as a freshman, he didn't play that much. But what I liked about him, it's the same thing. He's Spanish, the same youth. He's played the same way, but he has that NBA type of passing. That's one. He's an excellent screener, and he's active in the pick and pop. And he knows what he's doing because he only does a couple of things, but he's done them so well already. As a freshman, he didn't play that much, but it didn't really matter to me because I know he's going to have a sophomore leap. And some guys left. And of course, with Pittsburgh, you have to have a long-term plan for guys like these. And as a freshman, physically, he was not ready to play a lot of minutes.
Sure.
Right now, he improved. But as a 7-footer who can play very good in the post, pass out of the post, and is a shooting threat, that's the easy pick, But on the defensive end, he's a bit slow-footed for my taste. But with that size, that's come naturally. But as a rim protector, I like him a lot. He plays with a lot of toughness. But he's look a bit lanky, because it's just a skinny dude who's very tall. In the post, they don't look really convincing. But I think he can be a 5 at the NBA level. For example, for the Wizards, I would take a flyer on him with an early second-round pick. Because if I look, for example, at how the Wizards should play, they can play 5 out with Baldwin maybe at the 4, him at the 5. Especially with the way how he screens, he set a lot of active off-ball screens. I think what I like about, for example, the Wizards that they need a good screener, man. I think Gafford he's not showing it. I think Gortat was the last one you had, so that's
Gortat tried to help Gafford out with that last year, and it resulted in a lot of moving picks. So I'm with you.
Offensive foul. So not to pick on Gafford because I like Gafford a lot, man.
Sure.
He's a very good player. I think he's very underrated, but you have to be careful with drafting a big that's similar to him because that's not really moving the needle. But with Diaz Graham, I think as a passer, as a shooter in the pick and pop, especially as a screener, those two things are things that Wizards desperately need at the center position. I like him, man, for the Wizards as an early flyer.
I love that because he's a lesser heralded guy, and that's something for people to check out. And he's averaging about 16 minutes and about 6 points per game so far this year. So they haven't fully integrated him yet, but he was going to go play prep school for a friend of mine, and I got to see some video a couple years ago, and he's definitely an intriguing guy, to say the least. All right, I'm not going to give you one. I'm going to give you three. I don't want to go super deep into them, but I'll just throw some names out. These are guys I like. Been a big Trevon Brazile guy. He's just super lanky. I think he could give you a lot of the things that people are looking for Alex Sarr to give you, and I actually buy the shooting a lot more. He's just a little smaller, but he's such an elite athlete. I think he could be switchable and a rim protector and a weak side shot blocker and all those other things, but also a rim runner, play finisher. So, and there's a little wiggle to him. So I love that. If you're going to go traditional center drop coverage kind of big, I think people are really sleeping on Ryan Kalkbrenner because he's older and not crazy efficient, but he's another guy where like the blocks would be even higher, but people are almost like afraid to challenge him at this point. He's just another massive
I had him as
dude.
first round pick on my board.
Yeah, I think I probably will too, to be honest with you. So I don't know if he'll go that early. So if the Wizards are picking 34 or something like that, he's someone I would certainly consider. I think he would play for this team right now if he'd come out last year. Like everyone loved Jay Huff. Picture like better Jay Huff, in my opinion. And then the other one, this is kind of cheating. He's a little bit of a wing, but Baba Miller is still somebody I have a lot of stock in. Eventually he probably plays the 4/5 more than I don't know if he's like a full-time wing. So he'll be interesting. Josue asked in the chat about Ryan Dunn from UVA. He's more of a wing to me, so we'll save him for another episode, but I appreciate the question. And also, it never makes no sense asked, Ersin, how you feel about Tristan Vukcevic. Just real quickly, any thoughts on Vukcevic?
Yeah, I think what happened was always going to happen. I think with Vukcevic is, if you look at the offensive things that he's going to add, he belongs in the NBA. But defensively, it's the easiest answer I can get, man. Defensively, it wasn't good in Europe. It's definitely not good. Could be good at the NBA level.
Yeah.
So I don't expect a lot unless the Wizards give him a couple of years to develop.
Sure.
But roster spots are scarce, man. You don't get a couple of years to develop unless you're really moving the needle. But a guy like Vucevic, I think the athleticism was definitely a big thing with him. That's why he eventually made a step to the NBA. If he doesn't have that, he's not an NBA player. It's easy as that. It sounds harsh, but this was going to happen.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm not super sold on that pick. I would have rather traded up than trade down because there were a lot of guys in the 25 range that are still being really productive this year. So I'd rather go from, I think, 35 to 42. I would have rather seen them go from 35 to 25 and use some assets. But all right, just in the interest of time here, let's maybe go with a guard each that we like. Any guards you want to throw out here that maybe are lesser heralded guys that you're higher on than consensus?
Man, if I look at today's NBA, I think we talked about most of the top 10 guys. But the guy that I like about for this year is Jaden Akins from Michigan State.
Okay.
He's playing, they play a 3-guard lineup. So he's mostly playing as that 3. I think as a defender, he's one of the best defenders in the last 2 drafts, without a doubt. And he's in his junior year. With Jaden Akins, his 3-point shooting, I think the numbers speak for itself. But that's not the numbers that is intriguing, but the way he shoots. He gets to his spots with ease. He's that ultimate low usage guy, man. That ultimate low usage guy that's going to make your team better. I think as a point of attack defender, there are very few better than him in the country, without a doubt. Because he's really making life easier for Ajay Hobart and Tyson Walker on the Michigan State team. They had a rough start to the season because the shots are not falling. I'm not really worried about that. I have Jaden Akins as a late first round pick. I think he really moves the needle defensively. On the offensive end, he is a bit reluctant, to be honest. I think he is either Tom Izzo is really instructing him to give more Tyson Walker and AJ Hokart the keys to the offense rather than him. But as a defender, I think you're not going to find a better one easier. So Jaden Akins is the one I really like. And I think for the Wizards, if you pick in the late first round, for example, they acquire a pick in the late first round, early second, he's a guy I would target, without a doubt. And not to plug my work shamelessly here, but if you want to go more on depth, on Substack, I wrote a report on him, on Guillermo Diaz Graham as well.
Um,
About that, where I try to go more in depth in these guys.
Mhm.
But Jaden Akins he's playing for a big program, but he's not getting the draft consideration that he deserves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think them being so bad offensively so far this year has kind of hurt everybody. He's shooting like 35% from the field, 10% from three, but no one on their team other than Tyson Walker can score. So I think that's that's really hurting everyone right now. But he's rebounding the ball, stealing the ball a lot, trying to be productive in other ways here.
Yeah, I like him, man. Jaden Akins is really nice to keep an eye on. His
Yep.
name is going to pop out eventually.
I love that. Yeah, I think anything outside the box is super interesting for
Anything
folks
else? I have another guy that I want to talk about for Wake
Sure.
Forest, Hunter Sellers.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
in the same archetype, but Hunter Sellers has a lot more things to prove. Also in his junior year, 5-star
transferred
recruit of
from
Nebraska,
Gonzaga.
didn't play for Gonzaga for 2 years. They
Right.
basically wasted it. I'm not normally a guy to talk negatively about a program, but the Gonzaga, I have no good things to say about it.
Mm.
Because the way they treated him, and also that other guy was going to go to Kentucky, but he chose to go to Gonzaga, didn't play either. So, nah, man, I went with him. Hunter Sellers is a terrific defender, man. But he's more so a natural scorer more than Jaden Akins is. He's a natural scorer that should play as an off guard. And I think with Wake Forest, they have Hildreth. He's a good player.
Yeah, Cam
And
Hildreth is a
Hunter Sellers is starting. So, and
Sure.
Coach Steve Forbes is one of the most creative coaches in college basketball. I
great
like him a
defensive
lot.
coach too. Yeah.
And Hunter Sellers he has a lot to prove, but eventually he will be getting into draft consideration. But right now it's too early.
Another great call, and I think Wake Forest is probably not high on people's radar. So if you see them out there,
Yeah.
ACC fans, give them a watch. Josue in the chat asked if we talked about Jacoby Walter. Going to save him for a wings episode here. He's kind of more of more of a scoring guard than a facilitator type. So we'll save him. Just another couple names to keep an eye on for folks. Again, don't want to spend a ton of time on undersized, but Aden Holloway, freshman for Auburn, could be like Sharif Cooper, but with more jump shot potential. Interesting. Ryan Nembhard, his brother Andrew Nembhard, everybody kind of slept on him. A little bit smaller maybe and less physical, but I think potentially quicker and more dynamic. They playing for Gonzaga this year, so I think he's going to have a huge year. Kevin McCullough, probably more of a wing, but I think would have to create some on ball. He's just probably the best defensive wing in the draft.
Yeah,
But,
and that's where it's basically ending for him. So he's in a tough position.
He's hit some threes this year too, so I think that's good for him. That maybe they retooled him. Had a triple double the other night against Kentucky, so that's good. So Tyler Kolek was Big East Player of the Year last year. I think he could win that award again this year, and he's just like so productive that even though he's not your typical NBA draft prospect, he's a guy that wouldn't surprise me if someone took him in like the late second round. He ended up like hanging around as a backup point guard for a long time. I love me Aidan Mahaney. Just got all the Aidan Mahaney stock for St. Mary's. Again, probably not a great defensive prospect, but elite in the pick and roll. I think he really shoots it. And if you watch their Gonzaga games last year, just massive stones on the guy. So I respect that. And the last one here, again, probably more of a wing at the college level because they ask him to do everything offensively. I think in the NBA, he's probably more of a facilitator type, is Ajay Mitchell out of UC Santa Barbara. Just like a killer in the pick and roll. He's from Belgium. He's used to being more of a facilitator type. Their coaching staff has like begged him to be their main offensive hub. So I think the way he plays now is differently than he'd play in college. But as a sophomore, averaged 16 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 steals. Only shot 27% from 3, but the shot looks really good. I think a lot of that has to do with shot selection. And he's an 81% free throw shooter, so there's definitely enough touch here. But to me, he would be like a pick and roll nightmare for somebody coming off the bench.
Yeah, I like that call, man. I think if he fixes his shot, he's going to be drafted as easy as that. Because in terms of guards, he's one of the most complete players. But he's playing for can we call him a mid-major?
Yeah, they're mid-major. Yeah. Lower mid-major, honestly, but they're a good team in a lower mid-major.
Yeah, they're a good team, and they went to the tournament right last season. Yep. They got eliminated early, but that's okay. I think what he's showing is he has a lot of feel for the game, but on the offensive end, you know that he has to carry the burden, man, because he's forcing his way to shots that's not good. It's not really helping in this situation. But if he fixes his shot, I think he's going to be drafted. But he's more so the end of the bench type of player. I don't think he's going to be a starter at the NBA level unless he's staying the same and he's shooting lights out and he's bringing them success. Then you have no choice, but that's asking a lot and not really being realistic.
Agree. Yeah, more of a late round sleeper that I don't see on boards, but I think I would take a shot on. Ersin, most important question: where can people find your work?
Yeah, man, it's on Twitter at @edemir_NBA. I tweet about college basketball and the draft normally, a lot of times per day. Like last time, I'm not doing that. This season, I'm going to do it a lot less.
Okay.
I'm trying to improve my English with writing, so I started the Substack. It's on my page. It's all free, and I write scouting reports. My goal is 100. Right now, I have more than 10, so it's not
okay.
really
You're off to a good start, man.
100, but I try to go more in depth. Okay. And my focus is more so the guys that are not getting the attention. That's my thing.
Sure.
I'm not going to write the 1,000 scouting report on Ajay Collier.
Right, exactly.
But more so about the guys that are going to be very good NBA players, but they don't really get the love. Or maybe the guys that have a certain narrative, and I'm trying to beat the narrative. Not to be an against the grain guy, to be against the grain guy, but that's always been my thing on Twitter. I also give flowers to the guys that don't get attention. I think if you look at my page, I barely talk about Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson. Unless it's to change a certain narrative to really put my opinion out. So that's my thing. I think Substack is going to be my thing this season. And other than that, I do work for Shot Quality. Definitely check them out as well. I think they're game changers with the way them using the data to, make decision makers a lot better, especially with coaching staff. So, for example, if you look at the shot quality stuff of Maryland, maybe the quality of the shots were good, but the execution,
not great. Yeah.
But check them out, man. They're really game changing in terms of how they use the data to improve coaching staffs. That's their thing.
I love it, man.
That's on me, man.
No, I appreciate it. I think your video work the last couple of years has been something that I really appreciate too. And I love anybody that shoves, kind of shines a light on these guys that don't get the same publicity. And that's what really good scouting departments do, is they find the guys on the fringes or on the margins that that other people aren't really focusing on. So I think that's a good angle to pursue and a realistic one, because again, nobody needs another 8,000 word report on, hey, Victor Wembanyama is going to be good. But if you can find a guy that no one else is paying attention to, that gives you a real, advantage. So I love that. Thank you for coming on and doing this. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll hit the rest of the other kind of lottery-ish prospects that are more scoring guard, wing type guys, and then some of the forwards that are a little more hybrid-y in a future episode here. So thanks for tuning in. This was Bleav in Wizards. Rate, review, subscribe. Hit that little notification button for us on the YouTube page. Want to keep growing the YouTube channel if we can, so I always appreciate that. And shameless plug for our Bleav in DMV Hoops pod. If you're not following that, had a really good one today, I think. Again, kind of selfish and biased, but with Garrett Johnson of George Washington, overcame a 9-inch tumor in his hip. He had to take the last 2 years off to do chemo and had a bunch of 9-hour surgeries to try to shrink that thing. And he is just killing it right now. I actually think he is like a pro prospect because he's 6'8"-ish, can shoot it, can dunk on people. So somebody worth keeping an eye on. So please follow us over on that thread as well, trying to keep grow that one and represent the DMV well. Ersin, thanks again, man. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon here, hopefully. Everybody, presented by betonline.ag, and we will catch you all next time.